get to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Friday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today, and I'm going to bring him up in just a second. Do got just a couple of quick announcements here. My team always wants me to say this at the beginning of the episode as well as the end. If you get value in what you hear today, you guys, and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show. And if you're feeling ambitious after this one, which I know you will be, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, your network's going to see it as well. And then one final thing, you guys, next Wednesday, just like every Wednesday, our weekly newsletter drops. And as always, I don't just auto-sign my contact list up there. So if you want to get in on it, it's once a week. It's all freight related. Drops on Wednesday. I just need you to go to thefreightcoach.com. It'll auto-prompt you to register. All right, you guys. Today, enterprise yard operations. This to me it's such a vital thing to the industry, and a lot of people overlook it, right? Like, trailers are just ready. You go in, sometimes you drop them, live load, whatever that is. And if you've been to some of these larger facilities out there, it is truly a science, I swear, to keep on top of all of the equipment that's running in and out of these places. So I have Mr. Matt Yearling on the show today with YMX Logistics. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Now, I'm looking forward to it here. And, I like to start off every episode, Matt, kind of one and the same. How'd you get your start in freight? Like, what brought you into the transportation industry?
Well, that's a good question. So very, very briefly, originally from the UK, got into technology. I've been an enterprise technology software guy for all my life. ERP, CRM, security, supply chain. So supply chain to me, from a technology enablement and driving value proposition, is huge, right? So I first got into it back in early 2000s, like 20 plus years ago, maybe almost 25 years ago, in marine terminals. So my specialization, going back to what you were saying in the introduction from a transportation perspective, I'm at the start and the end of that lane, right? I'm at the facility. I'm within the four fences of that facility. And what does that mean to optimize movement of goods, whether or not that's a container or a trailer, between one form of transportation to another, or between, transportation and warehousing, and optimizing that. So that's been my focus from a technology enablement for several decades at this point in time. So that's my background. I am a technology guy. That's my core DNA. So when I look at supply chain in general, and then look at, as a percentage of GDP, look at, the real tangible application of technology, which there are various, right? Everybody's latching onto AI. Well, AI is enabling technology to apply to specific value to specific use cases. An example, autonomous is another one, right? So all of these capabilities have their place in terms of driving value, but it's like, how do you harness all the capabilities to drive maximum value to the expectations of the customer? And from our perspective, I know this is a long-winded answer to your question. From our perspective, there's been transportation management systems, there's warehouse management systems looking at these kind of opportunities, but we can talk about the evolution of yard operations in general the past several decades. But our opportunity is really looking at this blind spot between transportation and warehousing, and really driving significant value. In the scheme of things, it's a small expense, but the impact is huge. And so in our minds, that's the opportunity for us to really embrace and be a tech-enabled logistics company just focused on yard operations.
What is that gap that you're describing there, and how does it affect so many operations, when it comes down to, trailer spotting and stuff like that?
Well, I think, again, you kind of touched on this, before we started. All industries have different use cases for yards, right? So whether or not that's e-commerce to make sure that you've got enough empties to fulfill the obligation of outbound velocity to fulfillment of, e-commerce goods, whether or not that's to do with grocery retail where you're doing waves of assets with goods going out to stores, from a delivery perspective, or whether or not it's a manufacturing use case. I don't know how many manufacturers I've talked to and say, hey, we never use our trailers as mobile storage. Well, technically they do, right? So, hey, how do I pick inventory from the trailers just to satisfy my needs today, and then put it back out in the yard? So it really is looking at, and again, if you've ever looked at transportation or warehousing, and look at the level of sophistication in terms of planning and execution and throughput, I've seen so many schematics associated with the warehousing as an example. But when it comes to the four walls, between the four walls and the four fences, it's the wild, wild west. Nobody has any understanding of how that operates, right? So between getting people in that gate in a timely fashion without impacting public infrastructure, to optimize movement of trailers, right? Both full of goods on the inbound and outbound, as well as empties to the dock doors. It's an art, right? And it does require a significant amount of technology enablement, which there is not a lot. I mean, 90% of all facilities that have yards still lack technology enablement. I don't know how many times I go to a warehouse and I say, hey, we just did a Kaizen initiative and this team did a great job and they've got the yard operating on Google Sheets. It's like, whoop-de-doo, right?
Yeah.
That's the first step.
So, I mean, you're bringing up a lot of that, and then like gate management and stuff like that. How many bottlenecks are created, and how many inefficient yards do you come in contact with when you're talking about this, right? Because you're bringing up Google spreadsheets and Google documents and all of that stuff that goes out there, and I mean, I'm not surprised by this because like I've worked in the industry for so long, and I feel like a lot of individuals out there are like, oh, that's a big logo, they're going to have the best of the best technology. And that's not always the case. And, it is kind of like a lot of this industry is running on a spreadsheet, for example. And I don't know if enough people can actually fully grasp that. And the fact that our industry operates at the level that it does sometimes, Matt, off of like, I would say shoestring tech, I think it would surprise a lot of people. But I also look at it is like, we're one bad day away from like a catastrophic delay of shipments again.
Well, I mean, look, so there are so many different ways I can answer that question. I think a very good example of that in terms of how important yards are was during the pandemic, right? When we thought the world was about to end, and then companies had to pivot, and then companies had to pivot business models. Right. So, for example, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's like I had one customer at that time that said, hey, you know what? Our stores are shut down. Okay, so now we have to pivot and drive business from an e-commerce perspective. And what do we need to do? Well, we've got all of these shipments coming in from Asia with all goods, and they're piling up, right? They're coming. We now need to have more yards because we've got so much inventory. We can't put it into our warehouses. So how do we understand where everything is and how we're going to pivot and drive more online sales? And so it was a very interesting time, and all industries reacted in a different way. Like automotive completely shut down. Grocery did not. Grocery actually accelerated. Some of the CPG and some of the beverage, right? So what we're doing is grabbing paper goods, toilet tissue, as well as consuming large amounts of alcohol, right? So
yeah,
you could see that as it played out. And here's the fundamental thing. And I think, what would be good just to talk through, like, what's the evolution of yard operations? Because I'll tell you, because it's such a small fraction in relation, look, we're talking about transportation. It's less than 3% of transportation across your network in terms of spend, It doesn't get any attention or any investment. Okay. And oh, by the way, no focus. So nobody knows what the hell they're doing when it comes to yard operations at all. Okay. So, I mean, fundamentally, we've seen this try to mature over time. We are very drop centric in the United States for many different reasons. You know, in the 80s, people like to start embedding. In fact, the company that we acquired, you know, more than a year and a half ago to be the platform for what we're doing, which I've known very well. We've had joint customers. They've done a great job. Got into spotting and shuttling in the 80s, but it wasn't their core business. Mm-hmm. It was one of those add-on services. Just like other carriers, like a JB Hunt, it isn't strategic. They're just adding it on, right? Mm-hmm. So what we've seen is 80s. Oh, it's a peripheral business. Our customers asking, I don't know crap about it. You know, let's just add these services. Then in 2000s, there's this whole move to say, hey, for small companies, hey, this is a strategic focus, right? So there's a couple companies out there that are really just focused on yard operations and just drove services there. Then in the 2010, YMS providers, which I had the leading provider of that, right? I'm an arms dealer. How do you do it? How do you do this better than how you do it today, right? Mm-hmm. And now what we're doing today with YMX is like, well, okay, chances are the traditional yard services logistics company want to deploy assets and drivers. That's how they make money. Mm-hmm. The technology guys are out there saying, hey, we've got the next widget that's going to drive value.
Yeah.
The shipper is out there saying, I have no clue what I'm trying to do. I feel like gate is the big opportunity for me. I need to deploy cameras and do computer vision at the gate or something else, some other widget, and it doesn't drive the value they're looking for. So they've got fatigue around deploying all these technology solutions. So we're different in bringing this all together for the maximum effect. We don't need to own the technology. We can leverage what you've got, but we bring it together in our operating system to make sure that we're driving maximum value to the shipper.
Yeah, that's one thing, Matt, that I think that continues to kind of surprise me is the amount of technology that is being deployed. And it's great for the person, like the broker, right? Like I'm a freight broker. We're out there, we're moving freight every single day. There's a lot of great technology for a freight broker, but is it great for the end user, which is like the drivers or the shipper? Are they actually asking for it? And it kind of sounds like you're running into that as well out there, where it's like there's a lot of great technology, but like ultimately there's people out there who don't want it, they don't need it, or they're sick and tired of the next thing that keeps coming up and doesn't deliver the results that they were just promised for the last 14 other iterations of tech that was supposed to fix their lives.
Yeah. I mean, the stark reality is, and look, I'm guilty, right? Guilty as charged. I was one of them. I was a software guy, right? I was selling the dream. I was selling the value, but the key thing is that, you know, more than 50%, and it's higher than 50% of the shippers that I talk to are deploying technology and not getting the value, not getting the dream, not experiencing the dream that they were sold, right? And that herein lies the problem. I mean, you know, the other thing is they don't even know why they're acquiring the technology. It's a belief. It's like hey, it's the latest and greatest. We need to deploy it, right? We need to be seen as innovators.
Yeah.
And without understanding, you know, a clear path to a value. I mean, the fundamental thing is it's strategically a small piece of the spend.
Yeah.
50% of the time it's insourced, 50% of the time it's outsourced. Insourced, they have no clue what they're doing. Maybe sometimes somebody in the warehouse goes out and moves some loads around in the yard, right? That's not his core competence. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. The logistics company, they're focused on how they're going to drive money and being on their trajectory of how we've operated in the past. And they're not necessarily focused on what does it mean to the customer? What is it we're trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. They're not really focused on ultimately the network, what they're doing, how we're going to drive value for the customer. Mm-hmm. Okay, I just described, right, in terms of spend, relating to transportation, the yard operations all inclusive is less than 3%, right? It's less than 3%. If I'm a technology provider, right, the total opportunity from a market perspective is 1/10 of that, less than 1/10 of the 3%, right? I mean, just to put it out there. And I see this all the time. I see all of the people that are trying to be, trying to deploy solutions around the yard, thinking that is a big, massive TAM associated with it, when they clearly don't understand. They clearly don't understand how the operations are operating, what are the key problems that we're trying to address, and really, how is it managed by the shipper at the end of the day? They just do not know. And the other thing that I see, and you've had experience with this too, is that even because of the spend and everything associated with yard operations, it's seen as a utility and not necessarily as a strategic asset.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, give me the price for the lowest cost per hourly rate in the truck. I have no clue what value you can create for me, but just give me that price. Oh, yeah. You're cheaper than the other company, so we're going to go with you. It's like they're missing the plot. They're missing the plot in terms of, well, what does that mean for the enterprise and what we're trying to do with the enterprise? And we've got another webinar coming up when we're talking about this, specifically around manufacturing, right? And the interplay between yards and distribution and what's going on. Not only the yards have a big play for inbound logistics and shuttling between suppliers, right? Packaging coming into finished, and manufacturing. Not only inbound, but outbound logistics as well. So it's going to be an interesting conversation, but people don't understand this space because it's such a small spend. But the ramifications are huge, right?
Yeah. Do you think, obviously with some of the software, yard management software that's out there, it's just because they're not looking at it from the right perspective. Because operationally, again, I'm in the weeds every single day, right? Like I'm booking trucks, I'm doing all of that stuff inside of my operations. And, I look at it as I've worked with some of the enterprise shippers out there, the biggest logos in this industry. I've worked with them throughout my career. And I know the amount of wrong product that was shipped out, right? Because they grabbed the wrong trailer. And that's just one example, right, of it. And it's like the trickle down effect that comes in. So it's like, yeah, they might look at it from the cost of like, oh, it's a small part of our budget, but how many extra tens of thousands of dollars are you spending to reroute a truck back? Or now it was supposed to go to Charlotte, now it's got to go up to Virginia or something like that, right? Because they're just crisscrossing, and then it's the time wasted at that point of now you're focused on this fire, and then 3 other ones are starting to brew up in the background because you're not paying attention, right? So it's like that's where I see a lot of it is. It's like the efficiency is, it's a very reactive industry at the end of the day. There's not a ton of proactive approach that I've witnessed in my career. It seems more reactive, and it seems like you guys are attacking an actual root cause with your guys' product. And there's a lot of products out there that are attacking a symptom and they're overlooking the root cause, which leads to their product even having viability.
Yeah. You just stated the problem quite eloquently, right? So, if you're the software provider or, yard management solution provider, you're providing a widget for specific use cases, mm-hmm. which is actually, when you look at the problem, it doesn't fully encompass, right? How do you optimize the assets? How do you look at labor? How do you look at sustainability? How do you look at a broader opportunity in that operation from the fences to the 4 walls? Mm-hmm. The other thing, which is again, this is just a maturity associated with the industry. Okay. Yeah. There's not a lot of people that understand this space because it's not seen as a big opportunity. Everybody's chasing transportation because that's where everybody spends the most. Okay. This 50% of the time, the yards are of transportation budget. 50% of the time they're associated with warehousing and manufacturing. Right. So we're caught between the two. And one thing's very clear. If I'm a big shipper and I'm spending more than $1 billion on my transportation, and I'm spending 50 million on my yard. What do you think the impact is on the better yard operations for that $1 billion that you're spending, right, on transportation? You know, that in itself is kind of interesting when you start boiling that down. So we've got examples, right? The way that you upgrade the experience from day one is looking at that operation. Typically, they don't have the data, okay?
Yeah.
Typically, they don't have the data, but how do we upgrade that operation from day one and then put you on a roadmap for better optimization and value creation over time? And so, you know, if you're spending 50 million on your network, what are the peripheral opportunities that you cannot articulate today? Okay.
Yeah.
They're present. We've seen them. A very classic example of that is just detention fees.
Yeah.
So I know shippers that just all of the bills associated with that, the carriers just they're just, hey, you know, accounts payable, pay us this bill. This is what your bill is. Nobody has the data to push back on that. Nobody knows what's going on. They just write the checks blindly. But then when you have a professional organization managing that operation, in fact, we just did it for a very large site. We eradicated all the detention fees, right? Mm-hmm. That's tens of thousands of dollars minimum every month. And so there's very specific examples associated with that. If that is operating, then it's driving efficiencies on both sides. And that's what we see.
No, and I also look at it from like the OS&D as well, right? Over shortage damage. How much of that stuff is going on out there? Like the missed shipments and stuff as well. How much of that have you guys been able to quantify that for some of your larger providers? Like, hey, you guys are shipping that one short. You shipped out too much product there. Now you got to send 3 pallets back via LTL or whatever that looks like. Do you guys kind of go and break down entire case studies like that for some of your guys' customers' operations?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of different opportunities around loads, and it's not just that, right? So even salvage as well, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like how you're optimizing it all, right? So the other thing that's going back to like a grocery use case is a very good example, right? It's like how are you sequencing, how are you matching the right empties to the right loads to the right routes at the right time to fulfill your obligations, right? So you know, it does require that, and that sometimes the data flows through TMS, the WMS through the YMS, right? So that's some of it. So so there's those opportunities exist, but I can tell you right now, the ones that we're seeing are just basic blocking and tackling that's driving significant, just like the detention piece, driving significant value. And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe we never did this before. Well, guess what? It's like that's kind of low-hanging fruit. Multiply that by how many nodes on the network, then it's meaningful, right?
Yeah. And you know, Matt, I don't know everything about freight, and I never want to make it sound that way, but what you just said there, Matt, about the blocking and the tackling, I feel like the longer I do this job, the more and more that is very apparent that a lot of people are overlooking the fundamentals of this industry that have been around forever, right? Like my family's been in this industry for almost 100 years at this point. And guess what? In that entire time, you guys, shipments picked up at point A and they delivered to point B. Like that, we need those efficiencies. And for me, when I'm going in there and I'm working with the customer, for example, I know cost is always the big thing, right? They're like, hey, we want it cheaper. We want it cheaper. But what if you working with me in time, I can find those inefficiencies inside of your operations to give you guys a higher customer retention where they're only ordering from you now. They're not looking at your competition because of the service that they receive through transportation. Like I try and market it out there like, hey, I want to turn your transportation into a profit center. I don't want your CFO to look at this as an expense on your guys' operating budget. I want them to be like, hey, it cost us hypothetically $3 million to ship out our product last year, but that actually attributed to $15 million in additional sales because of the way that how efficient our operations are. That's what I try and uncover. And then, you know, furthermore too, like everything you're describing here, Matt, you know, I look at the labor market that's out there right now. I don't know a ton of people that are lining up out there to want to do certain jobs. And inside of our industry is one of them. So it's like, how are you guys out there trying to kind of help reduce those manual processes where, you know what, again, I'm not making this sound like I want people to not have jobs, but maybe there's a company out there that's doing a job that is requiring 5 people to manage it, and they're constantly backfilling it because there's a turnover in there. And then coming in, where do you guys come in to kind of help reduce that dependence on those manual processes?
Yeah. Well, let me unpack that. There was a lot of different questions in there that I really want to unpack. Specifically around labor, like at the base level, the attractiveness associated with labor associated with this is that you can be home at night, right? So that's pretty attractive, and then there's opportunity to grow, right? So yard operations is a you could start at the gate, you could start at the yard, then you could do shuttling, and then you can do over the road. It's like there's some growth, and so we don't necessarily have problems attracting the right talent, right? We do and we do train them on the use of technology, and that's the other thing I didn't mention earlier, right? If you're not aligned with the person providing the services and the technology, they sabotage, right? So nobody wants to feel like they're being automated out of a job.
Yep.
And so that's kind of key. But there are specific areas where, again, it's not necessarily taking labor out of the equation, but driving value for unarticulated opportunities within the organization, around how do you accelerate, like, for example, around the gate is a classic example. Because nobody, you just put a security firm at the gate, expecting them to know exactly how to check in, check out assets and do an inspection, seal inspection, or whatever, right? Well, there's a lot of technology enablement around that. There's a lot of opportunity around creating better value, because that's the start and the end of the transaction within that node on the network. So there's definitely opportunities around that. The other question that I want to answer, because you kind of brought it up, and I wanted to touch on this. So if you look at, and I talk to shippers all the time from a perspective of what is your strategic orientation? Mm-hmm. Are you going to one throat to choke for your services, your 3PL services? Chances are, if you do that, you're not necessarily getting the full value out of it, because they're not competent in every aspect of the operation, number one. Number two, they obfuscate the contract structure, so you don't understand what it is to do this specific part of the operation. And so you're losing out on an opportunity. I think, and there's many different examples of this, that you should really look at this from a best of breed solution. Okay. So there are shippers like is that they do Oracle Transportation Management for TMS. They may do Blue Yonder or Manhattan for a WMS. They might do Pink for a YMS, right? Or Claris for a YMS or something else, right? Best of breed. And so from our perspective, we're not distracted with anything else. We're very focused on this. We live and breathe this, and we know this better than anybody else in the market. So we can not only upgrade your experience, and really it pencils out from a financial perspective from day one, but again, we're going to be on that journey, and we're going to be working with other partners that are on your network that are working with you, right? So we basically, in some cases, are working like the 4PL, because we're like, as you say, that connective tissue between transportation and warehousing, and we're helping the guys that are operating the warehouse, and the carriers are coming in and they're experiencing a different experience, right? Because we're not only at the gate, we're in the yard as well, right? So anyway, think about a best of breed from a yard operations perspective. Go to those that really focus on it, because I can tell you the vast majority of people don't understand it. They put it in their contract as an add-on. They don't really want to drive value, and they obfuscate the cost associated with it.
I couldn't agree with that more, Matt. At the end of the day, I feel like the niche inside of this industry and finding those subject matter experts, I think truly that is where things have evolved and what the expectation is going to be moving forward, especially with advancements in technology. It is going to become glaringly evident to your customers what you are efficient and deficient in. And that's why it's like, for us, in particular, that's why I talk about the niche on this show all the time. Like, this industry is massive. It is vast. Like, again, you don't need to be a jack of all trades anymore. And I don't think that the market's asking anybody to be a jack of all trades anymore. They're actually, I think, looking for a rise in a specialist to come in and do one thing undeniably better than everybody else out there, which ultimately leads to a greater ROI for our customers. But Matt, I appreciate your time, man. We're at the 30 minutes. This flew by. I appreciate you joining. How does anybody reach out to you guys, though, to find out more about what you have going on?
Well, our website is ymxlogistics.com. And anybody who wants to reach out to me directly, it's my first initial M Yearling at ymxlogistics.com. Don't hesitate to reach out, and just going back to what you're saying, we're already getting the validation. So we're specialists in what we do. And so people are asking us to do very interesting things. And it's like, hey, we're all about driving value, and we see this differently than anybody else. And, there's a lot of opportunity, and we want to work with people too, right? So other 3PLs, other carriers, we want to work with them. We really feel like we've got some value to be adding to the industry.
Perfect, Matt. I appreciate it. If you guys can't find Matt or his team out there at all, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in direct contact with them. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious after this one, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back. Ayy.